Welcome, everybody, to another episode of You Are the Medicine podcast. Today, I have my bestie, soul sister, lover girl, Maddie. I'm so excited.
I
For this
am
beautiful
so excited.
conversation. And yeah, if you want to just intro yourself, I'm so excited to dive in.
Yes. Hello, I am Maddie. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited to be here. Maya and I have been planning this podcast for 4 months, but literally divine timing. This is the most perfect place to be in our lives to really dive into the topics that we're diving into today. But just a little bit about myself. I am Maddie. I am an energy healer and a personal guide. And so essentially, like to sum it up, I guide people back home to their hearts and their truth and their fullest expression so that they can live a life that is alive to them and leads them to be of service.
I love it. I love you so much. And Maddie is absolutely incredible. I've received her gifts and just experienced her gifts myself, and like 11, 12, 14 out of 10 recommend if you're needing any sort of guidance, especially in my experience with her energy work, like completely cracked me open in ways I've never experienced before. And truly, like truly such a deep gift from God, like literally an angel here on earth, just like I don't know how she does it, but reach out to
Yeah,
Maddie.
I guys, I could say the same thing about Maya because I mean, talk about being cracked open. Every time we're on a phone call, like catching up as friends, us being in each other's gifts. I mean, we're always in each other's gifts, but intentionally providing our offerings to each other, it has quite literally, I don't even have words. It's cracked me open. I guess that's like the best open and like I'm awakening every time that we talk.
Mm.
We our conversations are expansive in the sense of like I literally feel like my cup is expanding and overflowing every time that we are together, that we talk, that we text. Anytime our energies are even not intentionally, like we're like twin flames. Like
Literally, always communicating 24/7.
almost.
Yeah. Oh, I feel the exact same way. Like seriously, just so grateful. And I'm so grateful to be able to just like share our light and like this energy that we create together and like even these conversations that we have together. So I feel like we need to share more of our
We need to
conversations
share
because
more. No, it's
people need
like
to hear our conversations.
people need to hear our conversations. And honestly, we have so much brewing together, like not only our conversations, but just like how we can combine our offerings because
So potent.
it's so potent. And I feel it like right now. Like I literally feel like
It's
alchemy between us.
we're
Yes.
birthing together. We're having a baby together. Like, literally. I'm so excited for everything that is being created through us and together. And oh my goodness. Yeah, I really want to just dive into our stories and like everything that we've been through within our own experience of like our own personal experience with like returning to love and just this awakening path and kind of that going from just in the systems and the programs of society to like really breaking out of that and embodying our own unique authentic path and really just like living this unconventional life. And I feel like you have been such a mirror for me in that to deepen into that. And I feel like we both have been these mirrors in these unique ways that pull us deeper into our authentic expression by just like activating each other. Authenticity activates authenticity, and it's so unique to each person because your authentic expression is you and so unique to you. And so it looks different for everyone, but being in that frequency and in that energy activates. And that's why like every time we're together, it's just like fire and fire, like air and fire, literally just like whoa, because we give each other such permission to really not only like walk our own authentic path and really just like go after what our heart is calling us into, but two, just that permission to be all that we are, you know?
Oh my gosh, 100%. And I love that you said authenticity like feeds authenticity essentially.
Hmm.
And I felt that especially with you. I mean, it's so point when you're with someone who is like living in their divine truth. Because when we first met, I was really just stepping into what it means to live a life that I've always known I was meant to live.
Mm.
And you are such a beautiful mirror because right when I met you, you were, you were like, you were living in you were working in your dharma. You're just like, I was so mesmerized by your authenticity and your work that it 100% brought me such deep allowance in a mirror so I can do the same thing within my authenticity. Yeah, it was just so beautiful. It is just so beautiful to continue that because, I feel like since we've met, I was like 2 years ago to now, we're completely different humans and having you as just like one my best friend
Mm.
and this mirror to guide each other, like we're literally just walking each other. I think it was like Ram Dass or Alan Watts or something that said like we're all just walking each other back home and we're all just walking each other back to love.
Yeah, we're so walking each other back home, like so hard. And we have ever since we met. Like you said, I feel like we've both been such just absolute mirrors for each other and these activators for each other and our expression. And just like, I've always admired too, just about you, how embodied you are and just your unique expression and just like your rawness and your realness and your ability to just like really show up and like not give a fuck. Like you just have this energy that's just like, I am fucking bold and I'm here to like liberate others through my liberation. And
Ooh.
that just like activates such a deep part of my soul that also knows it's what I'm here for. And just like witnessing you just like literally go after everything that your heart is calling you into in such a short amount of time. I'm like, like, whoa, like it's so activating for me too, because it's like, it's what I live for. It's like seeing people in their liberated expression and like choosing to live their authentic path. And it's just so beautiful to like witness you just continue to like deepen into that and follow the calling and like listen in to just like where God's guiding you. And I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful.
No, thank you so much. And I'm, first of all, I receive all of that. Thank you. This path isn't easy.
Mm-mm.
It's so interesting that like you're reflecting back to me what you see, and I'm like, oh wow, okay, that's what she sees. And on my end, like, don't get me wrong, I so acknowledge myself and I see myself, and I've really held myself in everything that I've created, and I've done that, but it's still like this path is not for the weak. It's
No.
not for the weak. And so I really am super grateful for that reflection back because it takes so much courage to really say fuck it and take the unconventional route, and combining this like sacred union between your mind and your heart takes so much courage because your ego and your mind is going to continue to be like, don't do this, do that, do this, do that. It's like analyzing, it's rationalizing all of these things, which is needed. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not like shitting on that, but it's when it comes into union with your heart where your mind can actually do what it's there to do and process what your heart is telling you to do. And when we grow up in a society and a system that is telling us to be in our minds and not our hearts, and it's actually encouraging the disconnection so hard, that is such a courageous thing to do, to really take ownership of your interconnections and to really use and have courage to move through life and to be centered in the heart, because a lot of the decisions I have made are not logical at all, and it's easy to be like, wow, that's crazy, that's crazy, how could you do that, how could you do that, and like letting that fear kind of just guide you through life. But once you really start bridging like the mind and the heart and start taking steps of courage rather than fear, I mean, on the spectrum of frequency, it's courage is the first step out of a fear state. And so it's like courage is vibrating at a certain frequency. And right when you step through that fear is that's courage. That's courageous. And so courage is vibrates at a higher frequency. So when you move through fear, like instead of submitting to it, when you're moving through it and taking an act of courage, it's elevating your frequency. I think one of the best things that anyone could do every day is just like, how can I be courageous today? Because that is the first level of like moving out of fear to love. It's like that's the first jump out of a fear frequency to a more conscious frequency is being courageous. And so I think really this path that you are on, that I am on, the common denominator in all of this is like courage.
Mm-hmm.
It's just courage. Like
Totally.
how courageous can you be in every moment?
Uh,
Oh,
yes, 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 yes. And I feel, yes, like to all of that. That is so beautiful. And there was this like underlying, like I know in my experience, even when I was in that frequency of fear for so long, I always had this like ambitious energy that I knew I was meant for more. And I was almost using that ambitious energy just in this way that wasn't necessarily serving my highest good and the good of all.
I
And
love
so,
you.
yeah, because I've
You're
noticed trend. Yeah, that trend, especially in, the women, the just humans in general that are feeling called into more and maybe even this serving others, this path of serving others and really stepping into their calling and their mission. There's this underlying like ambition that's always been there of going after things and really pushing hard and maybe being, you know, leaning more on like that overachieving side or like the striving, super athletic, always like checking all the boxes type of person.
Mhm.
And it's kind of moving from the system of just like the world and like these worldly, more like just programs that we can kind of get sucked into to fill our worth and really define ourselves. We can lose ourselves in the seeking of our worth through these like worldly things, right? And a lot of the time, initially, we have this ambitious energy that kind of can pour into those things, which is leaning more into that fear frequency of just wanting to please everybody else and kind of seeking outside of ourselves. And I feel like it's when we start to have that courage to look in and really start to ask ourselves the question of like, is this actually true for me? Right? I feel like that's when the awakening starts, is when we start to question these programs that we've believed our entire life. And that's really where the awakening starts for most people, is they start to just see their life and be like, wait a second. They start to ask questions. And so moving from that fear frequency or even like the victim consciousness, even just like not fully recognizing what we're doing, like almost living on that autopilot and that autopilot state, to then starting to have the courage to ask yourself questions of, is this actually like what I want to be doing with my life? Is this actually the way I want to be thinking and treating myself? Is this actually the way that I want to be living? And is this who I actually am? Right. And it's like from that courageous questioning and curiosity, because it's this curiosity versus this judgment as well that can take us even deeper into the fear. But coming from this place of curiosity, we can then start to blossom into this whole new world of endless possibilities, recognizing we were the only one putting ourselves in this cage of everything we thought we needed to be, and we can break out of it. We've had the key literally there the entire time. And when we
Wow.
like start to ask ourselves those questions and have that courage, like you were talking about, I mean, the possibilities are literally endless. And
Are no like scientifically endless. Like literally scientifically endless. It's super I just first of all, everything that you just said was I was like thinking of first of all. Like that's like I'm like this always happens. This always happens.
we're just having a conversation with ourselves. That's
Yeah,
really
literally. Honestly, but like I love that I really, really, really love that you noted this like ambition, because that really, really resonates with me. I've always been very ambitious. And I channeled that ambition in such a shadow frequency because I was living from a shadow frequency. I was still living on these limiting beliefs, on these programs, on my old ideology, on wounds, I'm literally energetic imprints on my body. And so naturally, this ambition, I'm channeling it into these different areas of my life, either like external validation, proving myself the way that I look in my body, like athletics, like using this ambition, but in like a way that is speaking from my wounds instead of my heart and my soul.
Mm.
And I just love that you noted that because I see that so much within myself. And like I'm like real time processing this as well. Cause I'm like, oh my God, like that's what it was. Like I've always had this like deep ambition, but I was channeling it and from fear. I was channeling it from being so scared of living that it's that feeling, that contraction, like that. Oh, I'm pouring into all these areas out of fear, out of like not being enough, not feeling worthy enough, not whatever the story is. And so I just love that you noted that. And I love that you said courageous curiosity. Because once you start really just stepping back and becoming curious, that's the first step of courage. That is 100% the first step of courage is curiosity. Is why doesn't my life look or feel how it's like good? Why doesn't it feel good in my system? Like why don't I like love every aspect of it? Why don't I love myself? And being curious on why you are the way that you are, getting so curious on, oh, this is how my family thinks. This is how society thinks. This is how all of this external factors, becoming so curious of like, okay, what is true to me? Like what feels good in my system? What resonates in my system? Becoming so curious about self. And that is truly the path of awakening, is just being so curious and taking everything as observation. It's discerning what's true to you. Like, oh, I'm observing this, I'm observing that. I like this, but that doesn't feel true to me. That feels in resonance, but that doesn't feel in resonance with me. Narrowing down what feels really true to your system, and that's something that we're not told to do ever. I was never told that growing up. I was never told, like, oh, does this feel good to you? How does that make you feel? Like, does this feel good to you? Like, there's no guidance usually. I'm not saying there's no guidance ever, but a lot of the times we're growing up on a system telling us what to do, what to think, how to feel, how to act, go to school, go to college, get a job. It's like this never ending rat race. And I was growing up, I was just like, I've always known that's not for me. I had this burning ambition, like you said, I had this burning ambition to create something that was now what I know much bigger than myself. And then it was just to live unconventional. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had no idea, but I knew. Like I always said, I have no idea what I want to do with my life, but I know I'm going to be successful. Thank God, I saw an energy healer, and she woke me up because now It's so clear to me. It's so clear to me. This whole thing is just a way back to love, and to love yourself, and to love your path and your creator, and that will lead you home.
Totally. We're always just returning back to love from fear. And I feel like that's just the basis and the way to simplify the awakening process, the healing process into such a simple, and I'm at this point in my own journey as well, where I'm starting to just see things through this simpler lens, where I'm starting to see it as truly just either fear or love, right? And that's ultimately all it ever is. And when we are operating, like you were saying, from that, just what we've always known and the programming of society, and really just like putting ourselves in this box, starting to become curious and starting to question all of that, that's when we start to just, again, like you said, return to the love that we always were as well. And I think that's another layer to it, is we're not becoming something that we're not in this path. Like we're ultimately just being more and awakening to more of who we are. And it's why it's called awakening, is we're just
Awakening
from this dream, from this illusion of fear and programming and distortion, and returning back to love, to God, to our true essence, to all that we actually are and were created to be. And yeah, it's so beautiful. I feel like everybody's journey looks so different too, because we're meant to be our unique, authentic expression and live this path that's so unique to us. And we have at the core so many similarities, like even the root of a lot of this core wounding as humans. I feel like the root of it is pretty much the same. It either roots in some sort of feeling of not enoughness, lack, or unworthiness. And we have like these experiences we go through and conditioning that can kind of lead us into those beliefs, but that are different. But ultimately, it's that same root core wound that as a collective we all have. And just remembering that inherent enoughness, abundance, and just wholeness that we always have been, and just letting go of what we're not any longer. And in order to do that, we have to become curious. We have to start questioning, again, the belief systems, the programs, and these stories that are ultimately just keeping us small and contained and stuck in these unfulfilling paths as well. Like, I know for me, there's this yearning for more that I feel like we all have as humans. And like, that ambition, it kind of fuels that ambition, like this, I know I'm here for more. But then when we're in the program and we're in the fear and we're seeking outside of ourselves, I know for me, like I had gotten to this place where it felt like I had it all. Like I was making the money, I was traveling the world, I had the boyfriend, I was doing all the things that on a society standpoint was like I made it outside looking in. But internally, I was so disconnected from myself and I didn't know who I was. And I really didn't feel the love that I was. I still had all of this programming, these fears, and was just so entrapped in the system. And I actually broke out of the system and like became an entrepreneur, started traveling the world, like had the business that allowed me to like do whatever I wanted. And I was even making passive income. Like I made it from like a society standpoint. But again, I still felt so empty inside. And I still felt so disconnected from like my true mission because it wasn't about greater than me. It was always about like, how can I define my worth based on the external and what everybody else defined success as and beauty as and all of these things. And I still had such deep programmings around, what success was and what would make me worthy and what would make me enough that weren't even mine to begin with. I was defining myself by what I thought everybody else wanted for me. And it wasn't until I actually returned to, again, that curiosity and that starting to really ask myself these deep questions and crack myself open in this new way that led me back to myself and love and like creating my mission and still having all of these things that I had, but now feeling so fulfilled on the inside and not directly reflecting into my external, being able to create my reality from a place of love rather than fear and what I thought everybody else wanted for me.
Like when you are sourcing everything external, right? Like I have a similar story where it's like I source like my entire worth, my like everything, validation, everything was sourced from something else, from external factors, like whether that was me looking for validation, compliment, like whatever it is. And this path truly is not a path of seeking externally. It's a path of remembering what has already been there within, that we just built all of these layers over, and that we just have to like dissect and peel back the onion layer by layer to really remember what you're here to do and your heart and your love, and reflecting back on your journey with you had it all, to societal's expectations, you had it all, you were thriving, right? But when you're building this quote unquote dream life on a rocky foundation, you're never going to be fulfilled ever. I don't care what anyone has to say. That's a fact. Like, whether you believe it or not, if you build anything on a rocky foundation, it is going to crumble. It is going to crumble. And it's not the dollar amount that's going to get you to fulfillment. It's not the lover. It's not the house, the car, the person. It's nothing externally. It's all it's diluting all of that and remembering and coming back to your original foundation and rebuilding the basics back to, it's like, because that is the basics, like returning to love, returning to your inner love, returning to your heart is what our foundation should be. It's what everyone's foundation should be built on. And we're steered so far away from this foundation of heart led living that it's become so normalized and taught to live up here and to please everything around. And
Mhm.
so when we're able to become curious, become courageous, and ask yourself, really, why am I not fulfilled? And you're a perfect testimony of this. You're like, I have it all. Why am I not fulfilled? Oh, because I can't even sit with myself alone. For myself, it's like I use people, substances, everything as such a distraction because I couldn't sit by myself. I
Mhm.
had so many emotions, so many feelings, so many memories, so much surface all at once when I was alone, when I didn't have any distraction that like yeah, I don't want to go there. It's uncomfortable. It's messy. But when you allow yourself to go into the byproducts of a rocky foundation, soften into it, love and really meet it with curiosity, that's when you start filling the cracks. That's when you start building a foundation of like unshakable love. It's like that foundation's not gonna go away. That's the foundation of God,
Mm.
really, essentially. And so when you start building your foundation based on your connection with God, and I'm referencing God because that's what resonates with me. But if someone's on here and they're like, okay, I don't know, I have religious trauma, so I just see you if you like are like God, you. No, but I feel like source, spirit, universe, like whatever your creator is, like even if it's an ideology of religion, once you start literally coming back to the purity of it, of love, and building that foundation from that energy, unstoppable.
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 Unstoppable. Literally. Literally. And that's truly where the possibilities, the miracles, the synchronicities, all of the opportunities, it's like more than what we ever could have dreamed up ourselves. You
Oh
know?
yeah, I keep saying like, "Oh, I'm living my dream life," but like actually no, because I didn't couldn't dream the life that I'm living right now. It's like, yeah, I had a smaller vision. I had this loving ambition to move towards that, to move through it, and I'm like, I entered a whole new abundant realm because I used my courage to go through my tiny vision that led me to like heaven. Like that's literally when you follow your heart and like genuinely follow the heart and
Mm,
continue to be curious because it's like you don't just become curious and it ends. Every chapter of your life, every day, it's like how can I be so curious? Because that's we're evolving beings. It's like it's not like, oh, I was curious 3 years ago and now I'm here and I've made it. It's like, no, how can I continue to be curious to nurture myself, to nurture what comes up? Because every new chapter comes a new opportunity to integrate shadows, to bring awareness to shadows, to bring awareness to gifts, to integrate your gifts, to bring more of a recalibration to your nervous system. Every new chapter, it's like this never ending, a beautiful, beautiful, like I'm so grateful that it's never ending. Like thank you God, thank you God. I'm like I don't want to end now, like because every time you go there, every time you meet curiosity with love and courage, you are going to be led down this constant path of awakening to your potential and that you are the potential. I know that this is launching me into exactly to where I need to be to fulfill like my highest mission. And it's not that I'm like lacking fulfillment, but it's again, that's just the cycle of life, death and rebirth, evolving. It's just like it's just nature. It's like we're on this constant path of death and rebirth and nurturing and abundance. And it's so beautiful. I'm grateful to be here.
Grateful to be here. Just along for the ride. We're just
Just
flowing. Oh
along for the ride, man.
my God.
I'm your vessel, dude. Guide me.
Just guide me. And that's truly also the essence of that curiosity is when we're starting to become curious, it's about starting to like step out of our comfort zone, right? And starting to like see like, oh, there's more than just everything that I know in this little world that I've created of the known, right? And stepping into the unknown is really the essence of surrender. And that's ultimately what all of this is like when we're in that state of fear we're in that identification entirely with just the mind, the ego. And when we're in that identification with the ego, it just wants to keep everything the same. Even if that's not serving us whatsoever, even if that's detrimental to yourself and your health and your well-being, your mind will do everything in its power to keep you there because that's what it knows,
Everything.
right?
It'll
Everything.
pull out every safety mechanism. It's like, whoa, we're going to war right now. Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
And so to the ego, it literally feels like death to step out of that comfort zone. And so you're going to have all of this uncomfortability and resistance and all these fears and these doubts come up when you start to be curious because it's like, but feel that fear and do it anyway, especially when your heart is calling you into something and you feel this intuitive pull because it's in those moments where your capacity and your edge is being expanded and you're really starting to step into this unknown. And each time you do, you're deepening your ability to trust in God and something greater than you and in yourself to be able to surrender to your intuition, to the flow of life, to God, to the infinite possibilities that await you. Otherwise, we submit to the fear, we stay in the same patterns, the same cycles, even if they're not serving us, even though we know we're meant to for so much more. And we have this ambitious, especially when we have this ambitious energy, it's like we're limiting ourselves so much because that
And you
ambitious
feel it.
energy, it's
Yes.
fuel. It's like it truly is such a fuel and a gift that when it's channeled in the right way towards facing your fears and really stepping out of your comfort zone, like holy shit, the distance you go when you start to channel that ambition into love and being devoted to love, like I've witnessed it for myself and how when I was devoted to keeping myself sane in fear and my ego and I was submitting to all my fears, this ambitious energy was taking me down this further rabbit hole of just like self-sabotage and just like absolutely
And
not.
it builds the resistance, it builds the contraction. It's like in your body, you can physically feel like this momentum, but like you said, down the path of fear. So you're feeling the ambition, you're feeling the momentum, but it's like you're meeting this with like traction and resistance, and it's scary and it's fearful. That ambition that you're moving toward, you wake up and you recognize, like, whoa, I'm actually like feeding these fears and start channeling this ambition into love, into this different area that is scary. It is the unknown. This path of truly walking the path of love and of God and of your own truth is the scariest, best thing that you can do for yourself. And it's not that you're never going to experience fear ever. Like, that's fears. We live in a world of polarity, duality. Like, we are going to have fear. It's whether we're going to submit to that fear or we're going to learn from it and move forward. And I think time after time, people are just submitting to this fear, submitting to it because they're in the mind and it's like, this is scary, do this instead. They're picking out all of these like subconscious tools that they've provided for themselves because they needed that at one time. Like, we all needed these patterns and these behaviors and all these thought processes to keep us safe at a point in our life. And so our mind is so quick to go there. Like, oh, I remember this feeling. I'm going to go here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And once you start becoming curious and tapping and breaking down these constructs of what you thought was safe and rebuilding again your foundation of what is safety to you and like how can you really create safety from within, it's leading you down a path of the blissful unknown. Through fear is bliss. Point blank, period.
All of that is so interconnected. And it's ultimately just like you were saying, on the other side of that fear is love, is your highest potential, is that. And so that is what devoting to love is facing your fear head on and moving through it. And truly starting to not see fear as an obstacle any longer, right? Because
As
submitting to the fear.
excitement. Yeah,
Yeah.
like how excited can I be? It's like our nervous system actually recognizes fear and excitement as the same thing. And
Yeah.
I love that because truly, if that's not a scientific explanation of why we should view fear as excitement, then okay, sometimes we do need fear to keep us away from bad situations or something. But for real, like when we're feeling fearful about entering a new chapter that your intuition is telling you to enter, or meeting an edge that you know deep down, because we all have this deep inner knowing. Honestly, like everyone knows what they should be doing at some level and what they shouldn't be doing at some level. And once you start feeding that part of you that is scared to evolve, it's going to like build this muscle of like, oh, this is exciting. This is super exciting. And then it's gonna get bigger. And as you evolve, the theory also evolves, but it's the excitement also evolves. And then you get to just keep going down this like expansive, abundant chapter of meeting fear, loving it, and moving through it and learning from it and expanding and growing. It's like it's something that we get to do. It's not something that we're a victim of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally, totally, totally. That is so beautiful. And I feel like really moving from that victim energy to the co-creator, right? And starting to see like each opportunity, like you were saying, of that resistance or of these things that start to come up or whatever, like seeing everything as an opportunity versus just like, why is this happening to me? Oh my gosh, this is a block. I need to like just submit to the fear, right? Instead, we can see it as this opportunity to grow and to expand. And I feel like that's also such a huge part of this path as you start to really shift from that victim consciousness to co-creating and really starting to trust. And it's so interconnected with like the surrender, like we were talking about before, when we start to surrender into the love, into the unknown, and really start to face our fears and feel the fear and do it anyway. We're starting to really surrender into something again greater than ourselves. We recognize that like we're in this not just alone.
Seriously though. And also like anchoring into that. Really you don't have to do this alone. And I used to be really annoyed growing up when people were like, let go and let God. Like I was like, shut the fuck up. Like, shut up. Like, I don't know what that means. That like does not make sense to me. And now I'm like, oh, okay. Like I completely understand what that means. One, I had to tear down all of my constructs I had around God and what that being, that essence, that energy is to me. And you don't have to do it alone. You know, you have this force of all creation that created you, that created all things, that is rooting for you, and that already sees you as love and as perfect in the image of God. And it's the number one thing that is feeding this fear and this unworthiness and this shame is the constant programming of us being told that we have to be and create and seek ourselves to be in the image of God. Like we're constantly creating ourselves in the image of God. When that is not the case at all. God created you in the image of God as perfect in the image of God. And we have to remember it.
Yeah.
That it's the path of remembering. It's not the path of like seeking this, like, okay, I have to do this and I have to check off all of these boxes and I have to be this way and I can't do this and I have to do this to be in the image of God, to be accepted, to be loved, to go to heaven. You know, and that's the construct that I grew up on. You know, it's like I was so scared of death, not because of how I was going to die, not because of death itself, but because I was so scared to go to hell. I was so scared to go to hell. Like the way that it was taught to me was so fear based. It was this constant proving energy that I was told. You know, this constant energy that I was like, you need to prove yourself to God. You need to prove your way to heaven. You need to do all of these things to get to this love, this hierarchy. And it's like, no, that's not the case at all. It's like we need to, one, dismantle all of that. And two, come back to the inner knowing that we are in the image of God. We are made in the image of God. We are loved unconditionally. Like that's never going to go away. And we are the only thing in our way. We are the only thing in our way that is lacking and preventing us from remembering that. And again, that's why being curious is so important, because when you bring curiosity to self, to the ideology you practice, to everything, it dismantles and it opens up space for you to really remember what's true and what's true to your heart. And God, it lives within all of us. He speaks to us through everything, all the time. Most importantly, your intuition. And we all have that inner compass that discerns what is truth and what is not truth. You know, and it's like it can get really confusing when you're so used to practicing from a fear state that you have to learn your intuition. It's like we're all humanity is on a path right now of relearning their intuition, relearning the language of the soul.
Yes, all the way. Ultimately, we're always just seeking God. Like at the end of the day, we're always just seeking God. And it took me, again, literally feeling like I had it all from a society standpoint and achieving all of these things and having all these things to recognizing, holy shit, none of this is ever going to fulfill me, to finding God. Because I
Yes.
realized, and there's actually a song that I love, it's like a country song. We're a really small artist, but
Play
it's
it
I
on
found
me.
the lasso, Texas. I found it says, I found everything I've ever wanted buried under everything I had.
Oh, and that's just like a sigh of relief.
Sigh of relief.
Like that is a sigh of relief. That speaks volume because underneath all of the shadows of self, underneath all of the bad habits, the patterns, the behaviors, the limiting beliefs, that's where you got to sift through to find the gold. That's the alchemy process to find the gold, is like really eating all of that and loving it, like giving it love, not encouraging it in the sense of like amplifying it, but seeing it, holding space for it, loving it, to find really what you've had this entire time that nothing externally can ever give you. And I actually just had a download. Like I'm like healing so much on this podcast right now because I have had a shadow of like constantly like having to prove myself. And it's this ambition that we're talking about. Okay. This ambition that I've always had in me, and I've used it so much in this sense of I need to prove myself. I need to prove my worth. I need to prove that I can live an unconventional life. And I need to prove that I don't know, all of it. Like there's my whole life has been this like game of like proving myself, proving myself. I grew up Christian household, like very heavily. And I think honestly, like one of the major influences to creating this aspect of myself that I need to prove myself came from me believing that I need to prove myself to my creator.
Yeah.
Because if I have to prove myself to my creator, I don't know why that's never clicked. But but if I have to prove myself to my creator, that means I need to prove myself to everything.
Everything. Totally.
Everything.
And that's really the basis. Like I was saying, we're always seeking God. And so our relationship with God actually reflects into every single area of our life. And so that's why like a lot of these teachings and philosophies and even like, basis of like religion where it's like God is the foundation, right? It is true because ultimately that relationship that we have and these beliefs and all of these things, like it does shape. And there's this way of almost wanting to like supplement God, right? And we try and do that through these worldly like desires and egoic desires, which like I've experienced myself where it was, I went down all these rabbit holes thinking this is what's going to lead me to finally feeling fulfillment, finally feeling enough, finally feeling worthy. And I kept striving and striving and striving and striving to realize, this never ends. This never ends. And it wasn't until I truly connected, again, that curiosity of truly connecting inwardly, recognizing that that medicine lied within me that I was searching for everywhere else and everybody else and everything else, truly going within and connecting to God within me and remembering that I am made in the image of God and there's nothing outside of me, again, that will ever fill me, that actually led me to attracting more miracles, more abundance, more opportunities because I'm coming from this place of abundance from within and an inner knowing of my worthiness, my worth is no longer defined by everything outside of me, but instead my relationship with God and the knowing of God inside has led me to just this inner truth of just rooting in love so deeply that it's almost this unshakable foundation to where before everything that I was creating, like you were saying, was built on this rocky foundation of lack and fear and searching for my worth and everything I could, like money and how I looked and fitness and perfectionism and validation from everybody else, from the man, right? And like putting all of my power outside of myself to then really, and again, it's a continuous process because I totally we fall into these cycles sometimes. And like for me, if anything, it's now I see myself kind of still in that validation sometimes from other people, or like seeking for which I feel like we all go through these like cycles where it's like we're kind of pulled back into these old ways of being, that even as we're on this healing journey, we kind of get pulled back a little bit into these old patterns to remember again. It's like we almost forget to remember. And that's been my
Yes.
experience. Like it's like I'll reach these peak moments of like, I remember so fucking deeply like how whole I am, how enough I am, how perfect I am, no matter what the external is. And there's this like return to God, like this return to love that I feel so deeply in every cell of my being. And then there's these moments where I'll forget a little bit and I'll start to seek a little bit. And it's like, oh, this feels, something feels off and I just don't feel like myself. And then I start to kind of like dwindle into that just that fear cycle. And I feel like that's part of this path too, is having that compassion and humility and like grace with yourself to recognize that it's not just this linear path and you're at this destination. Sometimes that contrast too, at least in my experience, like I know I was sharing with you yesterday, I had this experience literally yesterday where I was pulled so fucking deep into all of my fear, all of my doubt, completely doubting myself, starting to like, oh my God, go down all these rabbit holes. But then in that dark moment, in that valley that I felt like I was so alone, I was so disconnected, that's when I remembered all over again and like refined my faith in this new way, because I remembered that God is my foundation and that all I needed just to fully surrender back into the love of God. And I returned back home to myself all over.
Yes.
And that was
Yes, and I
literally like
love
less than
that.
24 hours ago.
Yes, and I love noting that like there's no destination. There's no point where you're never ever not going to experience fear or shadow or falling into these patterns, because they're there for us to remember. You falling into that fear state built your capacity to literally hold this reawakening to this foundation of God, like even at a grander scale, shifting that perspective of like, oh wow, like yeah, this is very challenging. I feel very scared right now. And this is an opportunity to pour into myself, to build my capacity to hold love and to hold myself and to hold what the life I'm building in. Because challenge, any type of challenge, is literally just an opportunity to build your capacity to hold, to build your capacity to hold the future that you're calling this abundant future. Our life circumstances are literally just building us for this amazing, wonderful life that we get to hold. Because challenge, like I said, is building the capacity. And so when we're able to view challenge as an opportunity to grow, as an opportunity to hold, as an opportunity to learn, then we're going to be creating trust within our system to hold the abundance that is already here and is going to be amplified.
Hmm.
And I mean, that's just what we've been talking about this entire, I mean, since I got to Costa Rica, I feel as if my capacity is like expanding so much. My nervous system is recalibrating because I feel it. The first 2 months I was here was so heavy. It was so heavy. I was working through deep, deep things that I just did not even, they were so unconscious that it was the unconscious being brought to the conscious. And I just was like, holy moly, this is so heavy. But I was able to hold myself in that. And I'm like really noticing when you allow yourself to hold yourself, and you allow yourself to go there and to have this shift of perspective, it makes sense. It always makes sense later down the road, because now I'm looking back 2 months ago and I'm like, oh my God, I thank God I allowed myself to move through that and hold myself through that. Because if I just ignored it, if I kept bypassing it, if I kept shoving it under the rug, I wouldn't have learned what I needed to learn to experience what I'm experiencing.
Exactly.
And it's like,
Exactly.
exactly right. And it's like what I learned then, I needed to learn now for this abundance that I'm receiving, for my service to my clients, to the service to myself, to my friends, to my family, to the collective. Everything that you go through is literally just an education opportunity to, one, remember the love that's already within, two, return to God, and to create. You know, it's like the fuel of the dark. And you see this so much within the art scene, in music, in movies, in any type of creation. A lot of it is stemming from someone who is deeply wounded
Mhm.
and deeply hurt and who has channeled this energy into creation. And literally the best things come from when you experience and acknowledge and hold yourself in the dark to then use this energy, use this lesson to alchemize it into creation. And like and creation is so multifaceted. You know, it's co-creating your life, it's co-creating for us, like what I moved through personally, and I know you resonate with this, directly impacts the work and the offerings that I get to serve to others. And
Yeah.
so it's amplifying my creation and my service to others. It's amplifying my creation of love within the intimacy of my relationships.
And that is like literally the basis of shifting from, again, that victim consciousness to the co-creator, like truly starting to see everything as an opportunity. It's like that victim energy, which is fear and illusion and starting to submit, like just really submitting to the ego and all of its ways of keeping you contained in this box, or truly starting to follow your heart and God and your intuition and love and really starting to step out of your comfort zone and into the unknown, right? That true state of surrender. And yeah, I feel like to kind of just wrap up this whole conversation, because it's so beautiful and just like, oh my gosh, we went down so many beautiful just paths that I feel are so interconnected with this underlying just like message of truly just like living this heart-led, heart-based life versus just submitting to the fears of the ego and the systems and the programs of our society. And that, and just that choice of I'm going to follow my heart, I'm going to listen to my intuition. And honestly, knowing that I have this finite amount of time to be Maya in this life, I've had these little reminders in my life, like even like getting into a car accident last year where it was like, oh my gosh, it was these little moments where it's like we don't just have, yes, we have, I believe life is eternal and infinite and we just continue on forever in all these different forms, but ultimately Maya only has this one experience here. And like, why not live as the fullest expression of Maya and my fullest authentic expression, because that's who I came here to be. You know, it's like I'm not here to be anybody else. And at the end of my life, I always love to like channel my grandma self that's like on her deathbed, like literally, like,
Mm.
what would you want for me? Like, what would
Yeah,
you want to experience your life? Like,
I
just her,
love.
because ultimately, when you're at the end of your life, what are you wanting to look back on? Are you going to look back and be like, damn, I just submitted to all these fears and just like listened to society and cared so much about what everybody thought of me and it held me back? Or are you going to be like, fuck yeah, I just like completely devoted myself to love, to something greater than myself, and I didn't let fear hold me back.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love everything you just said. And I just want to like encourage whoever is listening who is either on the path of their dharma, you know, and they're really on this path of devoting themselves to this higher, to this service that's much bigger than themselves. Or you're someone who's like, how do I do this? Become curious, stay courageous, and really, I love that analogy. Think of your older self. What would she want, or what would they want you to do? You know, like how would they want you to live? And really just anchor into that. Become curious about that question. I love that you said that because that's real. God will, He will shake you until you wake up.
Yeah.
He will shake you until you wake up. And so if you're meeting all of these like these conflicts or these edges and you're like, wow, life is really like taking a number on me, you know, it's like it's begging you, it's God begging you to wake up to your knowing of love within yourself.
Mm,
And so yeah, I'm just a loving reminder that it's possible. Let Maya and I be a living example of you can live out bigger than your dreams. You know, you can, and you can live it. You can live the life. You can live a soul led, fulfilled life, and it doesn't take anything external, but for you to really come back home to the love that's already within you.
Yeah, the willingness, having that willingness to follow your heart and truly, again, look inwards. And like that, I feel is just the underlying, again, message. Just feel the fear and do it anyway. And like, especially when it comes to like meeting yourself and really going inwards and just discovering like what is true for you. It's gonna feel, we've been talking about, it's not gonna feel easy. It's not gonna feel, it's not going to be this easy process in this space of healing, of awakening. Maddie and I both, like, this is why we do what we do, because we know it's not easy. And it's actually a lot more, even in my experience, I would say that if I would have just like dove into this path completely alone, like I would not be where the fuck, like I would not be where I'm at today. And so like surrounding yourself with like-minded people as well. And I'm so fucking grateful that we found each other and our relationship and how it's been such an activator. And so let this also be a mirror for you that this is possible. If you feel alone in this path as well, that is really common, but just know that it's so possible for you to meet these people in your life who fucking get it and they get you and they want more for themselves too. And just stay devoted to your truth and your path, and it's only going to guide you to more alignment, more opportunities, and more connections in your life that are going to take you even further. You are the best investment you could possibly make. And so never hesitate when it comes to choosing you, because that's only going to lead you to more love.
Exactly. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Thank you so much for having me on here. I'm sure we're going to be doing this more.
Yes, we
Yeah,
are.
this is such a blessing. Such a blessing. I'm so grateful to be having this conversation with you and to be talking to as well to your community and your network. Thank you.
You too. Thank you for joining me. This was such a beautiful conversation. And please feel free to reach out to Maddie or I. Your Instagram is
Madaluna, Madilunna.
beautiful. My Instagram and my Instagram's underscore Maya underscore Allen. And feel free to reach out to us with any questions or just any feedback that you might have about this episode. And
like, even if you want to be like, hey girl,
hey girl, we're here. Put us in a group chat. We're here to just vibe.
Yeah, like we love like communicating and networking and just creating community. So like if you need like an air hug, I'm 1,000 miles away. Reach out and I'll send you the love.
Sending all the love. We're sending all the love. And so grateful to everybody who tuned in. Thank you so much. And we'll see you soon. Bye.